Hey everyone, welcome to On Review. I'm your host Ash, the show where we talk about all things media. And today I'm joined by the lovely Linda. Linda, say hey.
Lovely to be here.
Yeah, she's great, isn't she? All right, so today we're going to be talking about Barry Season 4 on Review.
H.B.O. series, Barry, Season 4.
So, Barry Season 4. So we're going to change up the show's format just a little bit, and we're going to try to first read a synopsis. We're going to go through every episode, try to read a synopsis first, just to change up things and see how this new format's going to go a little bit. So we're going to read through basically every episode's summary, and then we're going to discuss basically the main points of what's happening in this episode. And then we're going to have a little bit of episode breakdown. Then we're going to choose the best 3 episodes, give a little bit of predictions, score it, and that'll be the show. So let's get started with Barry Season 4. So episode 1. This episode aired April 16th, 2023. Barry deals with his past. Barry deals with his past in prison while finding Fuchs with him. And Sally returns home, and Gene has a spark of new frame after his help with capturing Barry. So, like last episode, like we talked about, like Barry got captured, and he's in jail now. And this episode was like just basically a leave off of basically what happened in the previous one. So because now he's in jail, and like from the previous one, what we know is that like Sally has sorry for anybody that is listening. Spoilers ahead. This is a pre-watch after post-watch after we've already seen the season. So we're gonna go for TVs and for TVs. We're gonna go through the season, the entire thing, and then we're definitely gonna review basically everything that happened. So Sally has returned home, and she's after that whole murdering that guy. That situation was oof, but good, but also oof. So she's home now, and she is basically. She is hearing all the news, basically what's happened with Barry and how all of his secrets are essentially coming out. And it's so funny. I think one of the funniest things like what happened in this episode is that like she was just freaking out. Like Barry, basically, her mom picks her up from the airport, not knowing anything that's basically going on. And like one of the first scenes is definitely one of the first scenes that happens is like Barry. Sally starts to talk to her mom basically about everything that happens, and she's like having like a panic attack and freaking the fuck out. And like it's so funny. Like her mom is just like stone faced. Like Sally's like I can't breathe. She's like freaking out, and it's so great. Like her mom's reaction, like every typical like acting mom's reaction, I feel like was just like, oh god, okay, drama queen. Oh god, that's so funny. And like it's to the point where someone like asks her something, she's like, oh yeah. Something I was like, it's like, oh yeah, this just basically happens. This is like an everyday thing that basically essentially happens. But again, I feel like this season in general was, I think it was a little bit of a comeback, but as we know, like this is the last season for it too. So, but that probably has something to do with it. So Barry's locked up now, and he is in jail, essentially with Fuchs. And Fuchs, I think, in this episode has just like noticed this. And Fuchs, man, I don't know where they got the inspiration for Fuchs, but like he's just honestly, he's a son of a bitch. Like. He's still trying to screw over Barry, despite him being arrested as well and being thrown in jail as well. He's in the same space, and he feels like he's not unsafe. He's unsafe from Barry, and like understandably so. Like what we saw like 2 seasons ago, like this guy was essentially trying to like kill him or whatever. And so I mean, like rightfully so, he should be like somewhat terrified for sure. But yeah, like it's his nature to basically, I think, just to want to essentially screw over Barry on a daily basis, I think. And then like what's so funny is like people actually like exist like this. People are actually out there that exist like that, just like they can't let shit go, and that's so sad. I think that's so sad. Like they need to be vindictive, and they need to like constantly be going after like this person because they feel like they've wronged them in some kind of way. But yeah, so what else happens in this episode is like Cristobal and Hank are now they're moving in together, and well they found a place, I think like out in the desert somewhere or whatever it is, and this is where the whole idea of like sand, I think that there's the whole sand episode basically comes into play. But yeah, and it was I think that was essentially like a weird thing, but for the most part, yeah. So what else does this synopsis say for yikes? Yeah, we're gonna roll through this real quick and see if we can read a little bit more about yikes, what happens in this episode, and we can just briefly talk about it. So yeah, first episode, yikes. And okay, yeah, first episode is like synopsis. Barry deals with his past in prison while finding Fuchs with him. Sally returns home. Gene sparks a new fame after his help with capturing Barry. And basically, Barry is now in prison following his arrest and calls Gene Kusnos. Following his arrest and calls Gene Kusnos. Barry begins talking to Gene, asking him if he was involved with his capture, and that if he still loves Gene. But all Gene responds is, "I got you." Gene meets his attorney involved with the case and agrees to stand as a witness during the Berkman trial. Gene also meets with Jim Moss, who convinces him to speak with the press about the arrest. And so something about this was just like that little bit was just like it's amazing because like I guess the whole thing with Gene, I feel like, and we'll see like later within the season, like he definitely shouldn't have been talking to any reporters about it. He shouldn't have been talking to any reporters about it. He claims that he is so like remorseful, or he wants to basically keep it out of the news. But like realistically, no. Like I don't think that that's essentially gonna happen. Anyway, so it reads as Sally arrives in Joplin and checks her phone, seeing the long stream of text messages she got while on the plane. She calls Lindsay Madano and is told about Barry's capture and her presence during the Genesis Moss death. Her mother Claudia picks her up, but Sally does not respond to her comments, instead of having a panic attack like I was just talking about just now. Yeah, and that was just so funny because she's like, oh yeah, no, she's fine, she's just being dramatic. In prison, Monroe and Fuchs spots Barry standing in the courtyard and calls to him confused to see him there. Fuchs quickly heads to the authorities, hoping that his knowledge on Barry could help make a deal between the two for his release. Fuchs promises to wear a wire and get confession from Barry about more murders. He approaches Barry to get a confession, but instead Barry states that he was right about Gene and that he regrets taking acting lessons, apologizing to him. He leaves, which seems to move Fuchs. So yeah, in that scene, like they seemed like they wanted to reconcile and to basically make everything basically okay. And I mean, like if only if like they had like if it was actually so, do you know what I mean? If it was actually so that they felt like they could be, cool with one another. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, Noho, Hank, and Cristobal has moved into a remote house and are debating on retiring from the crime operations. Informed about the struggles of importing sand for profit, Cristobal suggesting using his criminal contacts to make money. Hank is hesitant about the plan, and Hank then tries to call Barry, but soon learns of his arrest. The two of them decide to move back to LA. And I remember this when this happened. Like, I remember thinking, like, why can't they just be happy? After all of this shit they went through, being kidnapped with his wife and being tortured by his wife or whatever it is, they had it made. They were fine. They could live the happy life after. They couldn't just let this go. But just because Barry, and Hank has this unhealthy obsession with Barry, he for some reason just can't let it go. He has to be there. And it's so funny. Like, I remember the scene like where he's essentially like wearing this weird hat and sunglasses in the New Mexico where they are. It's just basically looking ridiculous. One of the more like definitely funnier I think episode, I want to say scenes for sure. In Joplin, Sally is distracted by Barry's revelations and is also disheartened when she sees that her father, Joe, has turned her bedroom into a man cave. Peter Joe's insistence that they watch her series on Joplin, which Claudia is not fond of. She particularly criticizes how Sally used Sam's name as part of the abuse story for the series, and Sally lashes out at her, calling her out for not helping her. I mean, yeah, definitely that was something that like I think that was kind of like fucked up. Like it was definitely a like a what the fuck kind of thing, because like she's basically yelling at her mom like, I need help. I've definitely been there with like I guess like personally, like with my parents, I felt like I think we all kind of been there personally, like where it's kind of like, I need help, like basically shouting at them like I need help, and then they just like, she's just basically oblivious to it all. I think she's like, maybe it's because of how Sally is like a little bit of a drama queen. Like if you see in the series, like I feel like definitely she's a little bit of a drama queen, because like I don't know, she's like almost like she likes to be the center of attention and like kind of stoke fires. And I think her mom has just become numb to it. She's kind of like, she's just shut down. She's just like, whatever. Like her dad seems very supportive though. I will say that. Her dad seems very supportive of whatever it is. But you can tell the kind of like upbringing of like what kind of like she had. So this is kind of cool. And something I found funny was like through this entire like breakdown of what she's like essentially like criticizing her. She's essentially like, well, you don't have a daughter. Like you don't know what that's like or whatever. This was supposed to be about or whatever. And I guess like I can relate. I think everybody, all of us, could basically relate to having like this passion, this dream. And then like having the one, maybe having a few family members be like, oh yeah, this is cool. And having another family member that's basically not essentially so. In Joplin, Sally is distracted by Barry's revelation and is also disheartened when she sees that her father, Joe, has turned the bedroom into a man cave. Per Joe's insistence, they watch her series Joplin, which Claudia is not fond of. She particularly criticizes how Sally used Sam's name as a part of her abuse story and is for her series. Sally lashes out at her, calling her out for not helping her. And yeah, like I said, guys, like we've definitely all been there, like where we have like a parent and you feel like definitely helpless. I know personally in my life, like I've definitely been there with parents feeling like they're not supporting me or feeling like no one's basically on my side. So could like relate with her for that. Back at prison, Barry lashes out at himself in the bathroom and a guard guard tries calming him down while he knows his crimes. Back at prison, Barry lashes out at himself in the bathroom. A guard tries to calm him down by claiming that what's going on with me today? Back at prison, Barry lashes out at himself in the bathroom. A guard tries to calm him down by claiming that while he knows his crimes, he does not think that he's a bad person. Barry dismisses his claims, angrily telling him that he kills cops and he could kill him and his entire family. The guard then locks the room and takes out his baton. Barry then recalls the childhood memory where he was running in the fields before regaining consciousness on the floor, having been beaten badly. Fuchs uses his informant status to drive away the guard and talk to Barry. Disposing of his wire, he tends to Barry, apologizing for him. Fuchs uses his informant status to drive away the guard to talk to Barry. Disposing of his wire, he tends to Barry, apologizing for using him. That night, Gene calls Vanity Fair reporter at Lon O'Neill, intending to reveal how he caught Barry. And even though he said he wouldn't basically call them, so that was the thing. I thought this episode was basically showed how he had some more humility and remorse, essentially for the things that he essentially had done, and he I think that basically sums it up. And then I felt also in this episode it shows that he's very remorseful. He did these horrible things he shouldn't have done. He was wrong, yes, but it also shows some kind of redemption, I feel for Fuchs, for him to get back to a better place, not how they were before, but a better place for essentially him and Barry. But yeah. Season 4, episode 2. And this one is entitled Bestest Place on Earth. The flashback of a young Barry. The flashback of a young Barry is introduced by his father John to one of his friends, Fuchs. Back in the present day, Fuchs informs his officers he will abandon the wiretapping operation, not watching the incriminating Barry. Using his Raven status, because he's the Raven now, guys. Yeah, he's the Raven at this point. Fuchs fails to convince the other inmates to join the gang Barry's protection. Yeah, because that was really funny, because he was like, "You're this now, you're this and this now." And he's like, "Nah, dude, my name is just Tom." Anyway, Cristobal meets with the former associate Bong to recruit him and his criminal organization for their new business strategy. He reunites Bong's gang with their rival gang at a Dave & Buster's Dave & Buster's restaurant, intending to get them to cooperate. Hank, meanwhile, has kept in touch with a person known as Toro, who can help him in breaking Barry out of prison, but will need henchmen. Cristobal convinces the gangs and other about their sand empire, but is taken aback when Hank explains he will need Barry for their plan, which makes no sense and which made no sense essentially, which is why I found this to be really, really funny and yeah, the basic fact that they went to Dave & Buster's and the line where he's kind of was really funny. It was kind of hey, look at me and Cristobal. We were enemies once and now we're fucking. And and he's like, no, not that. We're you guys are probably going either direction. You guys are probably going to go in a different direction. But the basic fact that they have a criminal organization meeting at Dave & Buster's, I thought was just fucking hilarious. It's great. Meanwhile, Lon O'Neill finds a note in his car left by Gene, who states he must follow certain introductions and routes for their meeting to avoid being followed. Lon arrives at Gene's location, which is the acting class. The interview turns into be a dramatized reenactment since he met Barry with the exaggerated claims. Yeah, and then this whole cloak and dagger thing that he basically had to do, this whole show that he basically felt like he needed to put on, completely unnecessary. But again, this just shows like how narcissistic and self-absorbed Gene Cousineau is that character. But really, really great is his character. Barry is surprised when Sally visits him in prison. Through the code name, she asks him about the status of the attacker she killed, because I remember that whole thing with the bat guys. Oof, nasty business. Anyway, Barry is surprised when Sally visits him in prison. Through the code name, she asks him about the status of her the attacker she killed, with Barry stating the situation is under control. She breaks down into tears due to the events in her hometown. I'm not too sure what was that all about, but anyway, and learning about Barry's real life. Barry laments the situation and wonders why she does not leave, to which she says she feels safer around him. Says he feels around basically a killer, but anyway, when he asks her about the latter, she hangs up and leaves. And I think we were all basically surprised when Sally like visited there, because he was like at his lowest moment. He really needed like someone to basically talk to, and kind of shockingly enough, like how I explained in the last episode, they're bonded by this death thing of killing and murdering people. But I mean, I guess at the same time, they're kind of like. At the same time, they're bonded by this horrible thing. But it is a horrible thing, and the way that Sally was acting at that point, like very irrational, like kind of crazy around her parents. I didn't necessarily expect her to actually show up and be supportive for them, because like up to this point, she wasn't being very supportive. She wasn't like she I don't know. She was kind of like being like all over the place. Anyway. Sally meets with Lindsay, who explains she cannot be her agent anymore, and rightfully so, because of the whole like cunt girl thing. She's going crazy, like the whole situation where she got caught in she basically verbally abused her at the time was her assistant, and she got it all on camera. Yeah, 21st century. She explains that the media has scrutinized Sally because of her accusations with Barry, despite Sally claims that she is the victim. Lindsay says her only choices would be starring in a reality show or a podcast. By the way, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video and or audio for OnReviewCast, because this is a podcast and you guys should be doing that. But no, realistically, like it's just a cool cliche thing. They call back to this. It's like, oh yeah, you could start a podcast or you could do a reality show. All unsuccessful actors or unsuccessful people that are in infamy basically do this. I thought that was a nice little jab. After constant daydreaming, Barry meets with the FBI agents. He offers to give the Chechens, Bolivians, as well as many other powerful criminal organizations in exchange for protection for him and someone else. Yeah. So yeah, he does the runaround. It's like, at first you start thinking like, snitching, bitching. Fuchs is the one who's snitching being a bitch. Fuchs is the one who's essentially being a little tattletale and going off to the FBI, and Barry pulls the old switcheroo of like, you know what, I'm gonna start like talking now, and so I can like essentially get out of the trouble or the mess that I'm in. Anyway, so back at the theater, Gene finishes his performance, which includes many lies to make himself look better. Oh yeah, that was definitely the case. Telling Lon he will be the sole interviewer, but that he must consider Cousineau an anonymous source. However, the event was witnessed by Sally, who confronts Gene for not warning her about Barry's hitman status. Gene convinces her that they're both victims and advises her that if she cannot get acting jobs, she can always teach. Yeah, so and the whole awkwardness theme thing of those that cannot do basically teach. Definitely, I feel throughout the season was played heavily and played strongly with her, the character. And that's, yeah. At their house, Cristobal confronts Hank for bringing up Barry during their operation, claiming that Barry does not care for Hank. As Hank defends his decision, he is called by Fuchs, and Fuchs has discovered that Barry is cooperated with the FBI for a special treatment, providing incriminating evidence against them. A disappointed Hank returns to Cristobal, telling him they must kill Barry. We have to kill Barry, which is the exact line that basically they say. Oh man, yeah, this episode wasn't bad. Definitely, it was. It had the whole. That whole trope, and I think that's a running line inside the series. It's like, oh, we have to kill Barry. It's a running trope of essentially that, and Barry never dies. We'll get to that, but still, not a bad episode. The theater thing I think was just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, that was episode 2, and in that, not a bad episode. Definitely a good one. So episode 3, season 4. So this one was about, interesting one. So as their crew, so we go with the plot again, season 4, episode 3. As the crew is ecstatic over the arrival of the imported sand, Noho, Hank, and Cristobal meet with El Toro, who has agreed to send hitmen to kill Barry. Specifically, 2 brothers named Nestor and Chai Flores, who host a well-known gadget review podcast. More with the podcast, guys. More with the review podcast. Through Hanks observes that none of the other actual gadgets work. Yeah, that don't worry, guys. If I do get any sponsors for this podcast, I will assure you 110% we'll make sure that the things definitely work. But it's just so funny, like, it's just to show that how the I think it's a running trope that, like, sometimes podcasters promote shit that just aren't great, but, like, again, rest assured with us, we got your back. Anyway, District Attorney Buckner, District Attorney Buckner informs Gene Cousineau and Tom Posero that Barry is making a deal with the FBI. He advises that Gene to not say anything, believing that the evidence will be on their side. As they drive, Gene tells Tom about the one-man performance about Lon O'Neill, causing Tom to crash his car. Yes, that was so funny. That was so funny. He's just like, what? He's like, oh, well, what if hypothetically this was to happen? He's like, what? And he instantly crashes his car. So funny. He angrily chases Gene for his actions, telling him that they must stop the article from being published. In prison, Barry has informed the FBI agents about Hank and Cristobal's relationship. He's snitching, he's talking, and he's fucking talking too much. They intend to honor their deal by informing him that his companion Sally will have to be questioned, and she must leave her behind. Barry is visited by Lon O'Neill, who wants to hear his side of the story based on the accusation that Gene made. An angry Barry leaves their conversation, telling him that Gene should shut up. Yeah, shut up. Shut the fuck up. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's exactly how he said it. Yeah, and Lon decides to visit Jim Moss, telling him that he spoke with Gene. And that scene between him and Jim, the intensity that he basically gives off. He's played by a guy who was in Supernatural. He was Uriel, and his demeanor is just so like abrupt and like strong, you know. But anyway, Sally has started acting class, intending to serve as a teacher. The class is aware of the recent media push against her, but states that they support her, which delights her and motivates her to be more free-spirited in her methods. Fuchs is informed by Hank that the problem with Barry will end that day, with Hank advising him to keep his mouth shut. Hank is shocked to discover Batir in his compound, and Batir wants him that he can join him in his criminal organization against again or Hank will be killed. And it's so sad that NoHo Hank is being bullied, aka Zaz, guys, like what we talked about before. It's being bullied into like being pushed back into this criminal organization. If he had just stayed in where they were before, I think him and Cristobal would have been fine. And it's so sad he's being bullied into this. And like at that point, like you just like think like, dude, just like go to the police. Go to the police. Like don't be dragged back into this like nonsense or whatever it is. Meanwhile, Jean and Tom break into Lon's house, wreaking havoc throughout the house. I heard that she's like, "What are you doing?" He's what are you doing? Is everything's on the monitor. Everything's on the monitor these days. There's no more hard drive stuff. It's just so stupid. Whatever. So those high tech things. Lon's wife is actually inside and informs Jean that Lon went in to visit him, disrupting Jean. Jean arrives to talk to Jim, who confronts him for speaking with Lon. And Lon is seen driving away with Jim, remarking he won't talk to anyone after talking with him in his garage. Lon arrives home with no evidence of anything, now speaking only in German. And so the dude is so fucked up. He was so traumatized that he by Janice's dad. He's so traumatized that he couldn't speak anymore. I thought that was like a nice touch. That was like, he's so messed up from that. So funny. Anyway, while hearing monologues, Sally is taken aback by a performer, Kristen, who arrives unprepared. She humiliates her in front of the class as Jean once did to Sally until Kristen confidently recites that I am big. It's the pictures that got small line in Sunset Boulevard. Sally's attitude and lambasted by her students, with Sally excusing it as she learns from Jean's lessons. After a break, Sally finds that her whole class has left. So funny, by the way. They just dipped the leaves. That's except for Kristen. While she does not like her, Kristen has booked a gig and wants Sally to help her prepare. Yeah, and that's it. It is essentially played on that theme of like, you might have been fucked up, and I find this in my life too. Like, and I think it's a maturity thing. You definitely have to like realize as you go through life, just because someone fucking was a jerk to you, or while you were being, I think a lot of us find this when we were growing up too. Like, just because someone is a jerk to you, or just because you were taught a certain way, doesn't necessarily means that that's the best way to basically teach someone. Or like, I was taught this way to basically like beat up on people and hurt people. So I was taught this way, so this must be the right way. It's like, no, like, you don't have to be who came before you. You don't have to necessarily be, a piece of shit. Essentially, you don't have to be a piece of shit. Anyway, back in prison, Barry calls Hank, telling him that he must catch Jean, claiming he has vital information against Hank. Hank confronts Barry on his lies, stating he knows that he talked to the FBI. Barry exchanges insults with acclaimed Hank before hanging up, with Hank cutting him out of his life. Yeah, that was a very heated, intense argument that they had, and I mean, it sounds kind of fucked up but Barry is snitching. I mean, he's snitching. He shouldn't be snitching. I guess snitches get stitches, right? It's kind of fucked up because like they've been working together, doing all these legal stuff together. It's like both responsibilities. Like, he shouldn't be snitching. Anyway, back to it. Having watched Rain Man and seeing a connection to the characters, Fuchs decides to warn the officers about the hit on Barry. Yeah, I just real quick comment. I mean, Fuchs is being a piece of shit, but I will say that in this moment, and him actually saying, you know what, like, even though Barry's doing all this shady shit, even though X, Y, and Z happened between us, I'm gonna try to do the right thing and try to warn him about the hit because I want Barry to live. That was kind of like stand up. But his claims are dismissed, because everybody was basically ignoring him, thinking he was crazy. Barry has been escorted to meet WITSEC agent James Curtis, who wants to make it clear that he wants the full cooperation from Barry. And Barry notices one of the officers accompanying Curtis appearing nervous and identifies him to the agent as someone sent to kill him. Yeah, that part was actually so funny because like the guy that was actually sent to kill him was another SNL like favorite. And I honestly like it so much that Harder brings all these SNL people with him on this project, and he I thought that was great. I thought that's just basically so funny. The hitman Nestor fails in his attempts of blowing off his own finger with the faulty gadget gun pen. His brother Chui hiding in the ceiling. He was in the ceiling behind and trying to kill him. So stupid. Hiding in the ceiling kills all the agents and officers in the room. Barry takes the gun and kills Chuya, or whatever. I'm gonna call him Chewy, guys. While the person is placed on lockdown. The guards and the warden Reynolds arrive at the office, seeing the massacre took place, also discovering that Barry is nowhere to be found. And yeah, that's that. And then that's the end of season 4, episode 4. The episode. So that episode, that I think the funniest thing in the episode when like he was like figuring out, when he was trying to figure out like, oh, that guy over there is basically trying to kill me. That ending scene was so good. Because he looks so sweaty, and like it also showed off like Barry's like, it's so cool, like it showed off Barry's like technical assassination skills, or like war skills I should say, really, of him being able to adapt to different like to situations, because like he stopped him from murdering him like really good, and he moved like really fast. But yeah. So we'll move on to season 4. It Takes a Psycho. What a title. What a title. Season 4, episode 4. Season 4, episode 4. All right. Warden Reynolds has guards attack Fuchs, accusing him of being involved in Barry's escape. With Barry on the run and certain that he will take action against them, Hank and Cristobal increase security in their operation base, as well as rewarding their workers by giving them an entertainment room. And everybody's like, yeah, remember that shit. Yeah. To prevent him from talking to the press, Tom and Leo place Gene alone in the cabin in the woods as they fear his actions could derail the incoming trial. He is later informed that Barry's escape, and he takes out his revolver, awaiting for his arrival. Yeah, because he's all paranoid and shit, as he should be, because he didn't tell lies, but he helped to capture it, and he's like being all panicky anyway. Meanwhile, Sally helps Kristen prepare for her role, accompanying her on set. There she meets the film's director, Sian Heder, who is not particularly fond of her blockbuster superhero film Project Mega Girls. Weird. Kristen melts down over forgetting a line and leaves the set. Sally follows her, missing a phone call from Lindsay, and she recites the entire line to Kristen, but Cecile tries to approach the role from her by it's Sally, not Cecile. But Sally tries to poach the role from her by delivering it to Heather. Although Heather does not take the bait, Kristen agent Mark Stanfordshire recognizes Sally's effort and offers to help her rebuild her acting career in exchange for continuing Coach Kristen, with the caveat that she will likely never receive major roles again due to her reputation. Meeting with Kristen, Sally is shaken to discover that Barry has escaped. I thought that was kind of shitty. That was kind of shitty of her. Like, I mean, you were supposed to be helping this girl. You're supposed to be helping this young lady in attempts to getting you were supposed to be helping this young lady in attempts to helping her furthering her career, but she's so self-absorbed again. It's God damn it, Sally. She's so self-absorbed, so self-focused, and so narcissistic. I think that's basically the main theme of like this entire thing. Like actors could be so self-absorbed, so narcissistic. In reality, like some normal people like me, like if I met an actor like fucking walking on the street, like maybe it's because of how I was brought up, I'd just be like, hey dude, like I would be freaking the fuck out. It's just because they love it and they get off on that attention. It's anyway. But I think that was what they were trying to basically show here, that it's cutthroat. Like Sally trying to basically poach and take her job away from her was just basically kind of fucked up. Fucking Sally, man. Anyway, the other prisoners listen as Fuchs is continually beat up by the guards, impressed by his loyalty to Barry despite being betrayed so many times. At lunch, Fuchs walks into the cafeteria bruised and bloody and notices the respect the other prisoners give him, choosing to wait until he has started eating to begin their own meals. Yes, that scene it basically showed like that's when he started. At that moment, he became the Raven. At that moment, he became the Raven. I think that's what it was. At that moment, he became the Raven. That all that Raven shit and talk about before that was just all talk. That's when he got the respect. That's when he became it. Anyway, Jim follows the authorities as they said, and start again. Jim follows the authorities as they raid a Dave and Buster's, finding no trace of Hank. They fucking got to Dave and Buster's. They went to Dave and Buster's thinking that Hank and his crew would be there. Finding no trace of Hank or the other mobsters, Hank decides to show the sand to the crew. Oh, the sand! I want to see the sand. Yeah, which is being kept in a containment silo. And Hanks asks Cristobal to join him outside for a moment, but Cristobal is called back to the crew, who wish to show them something. Suddenly, Hank closes the door and traps the door, and a trap door is opened beneath the sand, burying and suffocating everyone except Cristobal, who keeps his head above the sand and calls for help. Hank barely returns to save him in time and gets him outside. Cristobal sees Hank, intended for him to survive, let's start again. Cristobal sees that Hank intended for him to survive a planned attack on the compound, which is part of the raid by the Chechens. Cristobal is spared by the boss Andrea, and as he considers himself a part of the family through Hank. So that whole thing was so fucked up. And I didn't see that coming. I honestly didn't see that coming. That move with the whole Chechens basically taking control of this operation, and this is how he slips back into the whole criminal thing, the family criminal thing with the Russians. And it's just so sad. They didn't all have to die, and Cristobal got caught up in it just because Hank was just doing shit. Hank slips back into it. Anyway, as night falls, a silhouette about to enter the cabin awakens Jean, who shoots at it through the door and flees. Unaware, he is grazed the shoulder of Leo, who was bringing him food from the Coral Tree Cafe. He shot his own son, dumbass. Yeah, he shot him like pop, pop. He's like, "Fuck you," like a little bitch, and he ran away. He didn't even bother to check. Like I'm sure he heard the thud that at the door after he shot the guy. He must have heard the thud, and the thud. He should have checked, like, oh, there was a thud. At least like call the police, call someone to see who was there. Anyway, at their house, Cristobal is angered by Hank's actions, as he is involved in the death of their crew. Oh man, this scene. This upcoming thing. And if you've seen the show, you should have seen the entire season before actually listening to this. But this was wow. This is just something. Anyway, Hank defends it, claiming they have betrayed them, and the Chechens would have killed them if they wouldn't have joined. Cristobal accuses Hank of being a psychopath and no longer the man he fell in love with. He decides to leave Hank's warnings that he knows too much to leave him. After failing to stop Cristobal from going outside, Hank cries inside of the house before the hitman enters and sympathizes with Hank before escorting him to see Cristobal dead, having been shot by the Chechens. To his bounce, Hank returns inside the house. This scene, we got to stop for a second to talk about this. So this scene, oh my God, I think this was so impactful. This was so emotional. And the way that they did this was just honestly, wow. Just wow. Like the way, cause Zaz, aka, his name isn't really Zaz, but the guy that plays Zaz, his performance, Hank's performance was so emotionally believable. And it felt like how it would feel like, and if you've ever been in a relationship, you kind of know this, like it felt like how it would feel like if you were breaking up with someone. And I think because I think the situation is like he knew the entire time, like they were listening, they were being tested to see if he's really on their side. If Cristobal was really on their side. And that's why he was begging with him, pleading with him to like, don't do this, don't leave, don't go, whatever. And even to a point where he was threatening him, and Cristobal was like, what is this? You're gonna let me go on you're gonna leave, you're gonna let me leave, you're gonna let me go in my car, and I'm gonna drive away. And that's why he was fighting so hard, because he saw it coming. He knew it was coming. He knew that like it's either you agree to this or, they're going to kill you. And it was so, like I said, emotionally moving, and his performance is just so good. He is an actor. Like, this is like a very, very powerful performance. Very, very powerful performance. You can tell. It was so believable. But anyway, let's continue on. Sally arrives home unaware that Jim has been staking out her apartment. Upon entering, she calls for Barry, who steps out of the darkened room, astray, asking to stay. To his surprise, Sally tells him they both should leave. Choices. 8 years later, two boys named John and Travis fight in a remote setting similar to Barry's prior daydreams. Scolded by Travis, Father John leaves his house, taking a beer from the fridge to numb the pain on his head. His parents, revealed to be older Barry and Sally, are visibly worried, so Barry tells Sally he will talk to John. I was not expecting this. I was not expecting that. That came out of nowhere. That reveal of that, like, oh, there's a time skip. Like, there's a time skip in this. Like, I thought, like, and like, guys, let me know what you think about this. Like, because they've been doing weird cinematic things where it's kind of like you can't necessarily tell where, like, if this is actually real or this is actually taking place, or this is just some kind of like fantasy by Barry, like that he would like to have had happen, or to have happened. Because I thought, like, I was like, oh, they're doing a time skip, but like this isn't real. No, this isn't real. This is just some alternate thing in Barry's head, because Barry's like crazy, right? And Barry is crazy. Asking people if like he loves him and stuff. Anyway, let's get on with it. Season 4, episode 5. Right? Yeah, season 4, episode. And this is episode 5. Season 4, episode 5. All right. Here it goes. Name of the episode is Tricky Legacies. Fifth episode of Barry, directed again by Bill Hader, Mr. Bill Hader. He makes some good stuff. All right, 8 years have passed since Barry and Sally have run away together. They have since been married, taken up residence in a remote area, and had a son named John. Barry, now going by the name Clark. Clark, great name. Clark and John met with Travis and his father, and John apologizes for punching Travis. They accept his apology, although they find it strange that John could not recognize a famous video game franchise like Call of Duty. Returning home, John feels frustrated that they still seemed upset, and Barry reaffirmed that John can control his anger like he did, telling him he is proud of him for taking responsibility for his actions. So again, going back into this, I still can't believe it's real. I'm still waiting for him to like wake up from a dream or something. It seems so surreal now that we've moved into a situation, or 8 years later where things have changed. Because 8 years have changed a motherfucker. 8 years have changed anybody, and like you're not the same person. Like you're still you, but your way of thinking and what you've learned in those 8 years has definitely accumulated and changed the way your progress and what you probably will and how you'll make certain choices within your life. I mean, you can't be the same person. Not going into this, I was thinking like, what are they even gonna do now? Like, I know, like from the series and from the internet, like this is the last season. I was like, well, what are they gonna do now? Like, how are they gonna really make this still like, Bowery and engaging? Anyway, Sally goes to work at a diner, now using a brunette wig and going by the name Emily. And she's an actor, she can do it. Yeah. Sally's co-workers are unpleasant to work with, and she steals money from the cash register and often drinks when she is not at home. So she's loving life, guys. Great. Yeah. John has a limited amount of knowledge of work. John has a limited amount of knowledge and the world and his parents' real nature, since they watch his every move, homeschool him, and only allow him to use their computers if they're sitting with him. Barry often highlights many bad deeds that figures like Abraham Lincoln have committed, and is that situation and that topic was just so random. Like Abraham, like realistically, like all history's presidents and back in the day have done some really weird, fucked up shit, honestly. But I just thought it was like really random. Abraham Lincoln, okay, weird. Anyway, John takes an interest in baseball after bonding with Travis, who gives him a mitten. And Barry discovers the mitten in John's room and decides to show him death incidences in Little League Baseball to dissuade him from playing. And it's sure laugh, but like honestly, like at this point, like we understand, like we've seen the season, but we understand like why he's like treating him this way. It's kind of fucked up and it's not cool, but I think we do. Everybody realizes at this point like why he's being treated this way, and they're overprotecting him. They're clearly overprotecting him, and like the poor kid just wanted to play baseball and be like a normal kid for like maybe like 5 seconds, and just to dissuade him from like playing, which I don't really quite understand, because I guess they want to keep him sheltered and closed off from like knowing people or knowing too much people, because like Barry was a hitman back in the day. I like how we talked about in the second season, a bunch of people was like basically after him. So I don't know, but like I thought that this is very weird how they're sheltering him and giving him a very sheltered life. Anyway, Sally converses with Bevel, a co-worker who makes it clear he fantasizes about her. Saucy. They give to the diner's restroom where Sally kisses him, and then suddenly starts strangling him. Starts to strangle him. Bevel pulls her wig off and is shocked to see her real hair. He promises not to say anything and leaves. And while cleaning, John finds Barry's military shadow box. Barry opens up about military background, and although he changes particular events that involved killing, Okay, wait. Let's try that again. Barry opens up about his military background, although he changes particular events that involves killing. At night, Barry and Sally hear a knock at the door, and Sally keeps with John in the bathroom while Barry stands guard outside with his gun. Hearing only the faint sound of youths laughing and running away, and stays vigilant until the morning. And I thought that is okay. So I want to talk about like the fetishizing thing, the fantasizing thing. That guy was painted as such a like dirt bag, getting her to like touch his dick under the table with his leg, and like just fucking. It's so fucked up, and the entire time I'm just thinking or wondering to myself, basically, what the fuck is she doing? Like, she claims to love Barry so much and claims to be, and also, guys, this is still a head fuck. I still can't believe that he jumped 8 years ahead. But again, I guess it's the final season, so it's like, why the fuck not? I'm still thinking, I'm waiting for him to wake up, and still thinking, I couldn't believe it. Anyway, but back to it, of the coworker essentially Sally basically having a mini affair with this jackass, and her strangling him. I think her strangling. I didn't even know what that was about. That was a very weird scene, very kind of like cringy scene. I think what I think it was about. It was more or less her desire or her stretch or wanting to reach out to want to basically escape from the situation that she's in. But yeah, anyway, Barry opens up. So, okay, sorry. Yeah, let's just basically get back to it. And basically the fact I want to talk about real quick is that him standing out there in the morning and being very vigilant. We know that he does this because, again, he has a lot of people that's basically after him, trying to kill him. And it's just so sad the way that they have to make adjustments to like basically be comfortable or almost somewhat be comfortable and essentially live. It's very sad. At Warner Brothers office, the Warner Brothers office, an executive surprised to find bearded Gene Cousineau, who has been reported missing and presumed dead since Barry's escape, having fled the country after accidentally shooting his son Leo. The executive doubts Gene's veracity as he wants to talk with the CEO but he convinces her to let him stay. Back at the diner, Sally tells the manager that Bevel has been stealing from the register, and the manager says he will find a replacement, setting them up too. Sally's just doing this devious shit because she feels that she needs this attention. She needs this attention. She needs this, oh my God, just me. So sad. Anyway, returning to the house, Sally is disheartened to see that Natalie has found an immense success with the Banshee sitcom Just Desserts, now nearing its final finale, whatever. While Barry talks with John, Sally calls her husband by his real name, confusing John, and incensed Sally informs Barry that Gene has resurfaced and he wants to get involved as a consultant for the biopic based on the couple. Barry declares that he must kill Gene. We gotta kill Gene. That's a theme that we've been talking about. Yeah, Cousineau being a bitch. Not Cousineau being a bitch. Well, at this point, we didn't know what the fuck to really think or what was really going on or what was going to do. But we found out later some stuff that, there's real reasons for being there. But like, my thing is, I think, again, the theme of like, same thing with Fuchs, if you had just stayed where you were, like last season, if Fuchs had just stayed where he was, if just stay where you were and just chill and stop being so focused on certain things, like, I mean, might have worked out a little bit better for you. Stop being so goddamn narcissistic. Stop being so goddamn focused on just learn to let things go. Learn to let shit go, relax, and essentially calm down. Yeah, like I think that would have worked out better for essentially everyone. something in this episode too, I guess, I thought was kind of weird. Is like they're raising John again, like so weirdly. He's a Christian. He's a Christian now, and Barry is as well. They're raising him to believe in, like God and stuff. And I guess like no judgment, but like I mean, like at the same time, man, come on, man, you were like up there like murdering people like me, and I guess, like, but again, like, it's been 8 years. It's been 8 years. People can change. People change, and yeah, like, you don't know what they're really like gonna be changing to. Anyway, Barry season 4, episode 6. All right, so for this one, we're gonna, just because like we're running out of time here, what we're gonna do is we're still gonna go, and we're gonna read some of the highlights from this episode. So yeah, let's just see. Yeah, before heading to LA, Barry tries to get Sally to reassemble the handgun for John's protection, and Sally's hesitant in his plan to kill Jean, but Barry states it is their plan to maintain their normal status, as he does not want Jean to tell the truth of the story. Meanwhile, Fuchs is finally released from prison with his crew. Badass Fuchs is here. Now he's the Raven, guys. Anyway, Fuchs if you know the show, that's funny. Fuchs, now going to solely by the Raven, heads to Hank's new base of sand-based company, NoHo Ball. NoHo Hank is a big shot now. In exchange for his silence regarding Hank's criminal activities, Fuchs wants an expensive house and info on Barry's whereabouts. Hank has lost interest in pursuing Barry, believing that he is probably dead. Fuchs, however, pressures Hank into finding him, and Hank complies with Fuchs requesting in providing him a luxury house, for which Fuchs gangs will serve as security for Hank's purposes or properties. As this occurs, Barry drives around LA listening to podcasts and more podcast pastors in the hopes that one would condone sinning. Barry buys a handgun at the local store and then listens to the pastor Nick St. Angelo, who is the one of the final condone, who's the one to finally condone killing, giving Barry a clearer mind. I think it's so sad, like how obviously if you have to be talked into it, if you have to be like coaxed into it, to essentially to do this, it's just something's wrong. Something is clearly wrong. You know what I mean? Like something should be telling you like maybe you shouldn't do it. You should think twice about doing it. Jean and Tom meet to discuss Barry's biopic, and Josie, who describes it as a cat and mouse thriller where Jean stops Barry. Jean shots down the idea, claiming that his time spent in kibbutz in Israel made him change his perception of life, and deems their attempt the biopic as exploitation. The executive states that will proceed with a biopic with or without his involvement, just as an officer takes Jean to meet with the district attorney Buckner. Buckner reprimands Jean for fleeing after the shooting of Leo, only to risk his safety by returning. Yeah, I'm just fucking stay where he was. That's what I was saying at the beginning. Jean visits Leo at his house, apologizing for shooting him, and he mentions the biopic and how he plans to stall it. Although Leo does not believe him, unbeknownst to them, Barry has been staking out the house and prepares to enter, but stops himself when he sees Jean's grandson Gordon arrive home from school. Yeah, so I guess that basically stops him, and he feels like he probably shouldn't do it because, like, you have a son, you have, this kid that you're looking after now, and that's only when I saw Gene, I started to believe that this is real. That sealed it for me. And the thing is, like, what's so sad is, like, remember the last time Barry went into a house in season 3 and he got caught and he went to jail and then he got out miraculously? You should have, maybe you shouldn't go into other people's houses. Anyway, back at their house, John refuses to eat anything, so Sally decides to give him alcohol, causing him to sleep on the couch. While taking a nap, she overhears Bevel yelling outside of the house, threatening her and John. Then experiences an apparent hallucination where someone breaks into the house and threatens her and John's life, even managing to tremble the whole house with his car. Sally goes to the living room, finding that there is a wreckage that night. She calls Barry, asking him to come back, and John listens in secret. So that scene, again, they fuck with perception here. And I still to this day, I don't know if that was actually, I want to say it was real. I want to say that situation was real, but they fucked with the perception of, like, is it actually real or is it not? Because we see a figure that actually is in the home, but the figure doesn't, like, really necessarily mess with John or her. They didn't attack them in any kind of way, but they destroys basically the house and everything around the house. And I don't know, it was just weird the way it was shot. Like, you can't tell if it was real. Anyway, Gene visits Leo at his house, apologizing for shooting him, and he mentions the biopic and how he plans to stall it. Although Leo does not believe him, unbeknownst to them, Barry has been staking out the house and prepares to enter, but stops himself when he sees Gene's grandson, Gordon, alive from coming home from school. Yeah, I just read that. Okay. So back at their house, John refuses to eat anything, and so Sally decides to. Okay, yeah. No, okay. Sorry. We read to that. Okay, so at the luxury house, drunken Fuchs delivers a toast to his gang, also revealing that he is now the stepfather to his girlfriend's daughter. And it's like, dude, we just met. Yeah, that was pretty funny. And I like how you just, like, I think they stopped at the bank or something like that. He just picks up this random girl. Man, anyway. Fuchs praises Hank for his actions and success. However, Hank is incensed when Fuchs points out he stole Cristobal's business idea. And when Fuchs doubles down on the claim and deems the incompliment, Hank orders him and his gang to leave the house by next morning, ending their partnership. Yeah. He obviously hit a sore spot when he started mentioning about Cristobal, because that whole situation was fucked. Like how we read, situation was definitely less than ideal, for sure. Definitely. So back to Barry follows Gene back to his house, and upon noticing the door left open, he takes out his gun and prepares to enter. Suddenly, a person places a mask over his head. He wakens to find himself to a chair facing Jim Moss, seated across from him, Janice's dad. Oh yeah, and yeah. What is it with burying houses, man? Like, he shouldn't be going into houses. Like, the lesson of the story here is, guys, don't go into houses that aren't your houses. Definitely, try to avoid that. Try to avoid doing that. Yeah, I would definitely try to avoid doing that. So that was episode 6. Yeah, that was episode 6. It was called The Wizard. The next episode, A Real Nice Man. A Real Nice Man. Almost wrapping it up here. And the rest of these are not as detailed. So A Real Nice Man is the 7th and penultimate episode of the 4th season of Barry. It was written by Liz Sanoff and directed by Bill Hader. It is the penultimate episode of the series and the 31st episode overall. So there isn't really a detailed synopsis for this one. I think we're just about running out of time here anyway, so that kind of sort of works out. Yeah, I think we'll just run over it. I guess like real quick. Kind of freestyling it. But yeah, so this is episode 7, and essentially what happens is like they just left off, and they're explaining that Barry just basically got kidnapped. He's basically got kidnapped by Jim Moss's by Janet Moss's dad, and the episode 1 kind of starts off where it has this like weird thing where they're kind of showing what happened to Janice, and Kusno and his lawyer are essentially talking about it. And I think it's a very somber episode of basically, because it's the episode right before the series finale, right? It's a very somber episode in terms of like remembering everyone that's passed. Kusno's remembering Janice, and Cristobal and Hank is remembering Cristobal. So it's in that kind of way. And Hank is like gearing up these dudes to go take out Fuse, because at this point he's basically tired of him. But back to Barry and Mr. Moss. So, but what happens basically is that Janice's dad has Barry like strapped to this chair, basically essentially in a kind of like a sensory deprivation, almost sensory kind of deprivation kind of thing. But I don't think where his eyes are covered, but I don't think any of his other senses are covered. So not necessarily sensory deprivation, but like they're cutting off his like sight, and he's just basically trying to get accustomed to things, and Barry starts hallucinating, seeing Mr. Kusno at a dinner and calling out to him, and then he starts like letting Jim know that he actually paid him off essentially because he gave him a little bit of money, right? And back in season 3, what we talked about a little bit in the previous episode. But then this is when the whole orchestration of trying to entrap Gene starts, because he's so self-absorbed, he's so deluded, so focused on himself, that even though he's claiming to be one to get rid himself of any association and ties with it, and he wants to make sure that Janice's name is basically cleared and it's good, he can't let go of the fact that maybe a high-class actor is going to basically play him inside of the movie. He can't let that go. So he's entertaining that idea, but it's actually Jim Moss setting that up. And Sally reaches out to him as well, and Fugues, those guys who essentially had NoHo Hank had set up to Fugues, he sent back their heads. And it's so funny is like the boxes before Hank opens them, it's kind of like he just looks at them, he's like so disgusted, he's like, these are heads, and it's like, and then his assistant's kind of like, we don't know that stupidly, and it's like, oh, it's a head. No, it's a head, we know. Again, like the situation with Hank just abducting this lady and making him his girlfriend also, I found was like very funny. And they have like a powwow discussion about what should happen when they're essentially attacked. And it's just so stupid. It's like these different recommendations, like, oh, we could just take them to Disneyland or something like that. Or we could just turn the music up real, real loud. And it's like, oh, it was a coordinated attack. It's very, really silly. Very, 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 very silly. But yeah, this episode just focused more on how NoHo Hank was just trying to get is trying to get Fuchs out of this house that he paid for, that's just basically so expensive or whatever it is. And he can't do it because of how much guys he has now and how good he is. But yeah, one of the funnier scenes, I guess, like definitely was when they tried the rocket. They tried to bomb his house, and they just like, oh, okay, set up the rocket, let's try to attack the house or whatever it is. And they set off this rocket, and the rocket completely goes left in terms of like trying to hit the house. And it crashes into the ground below, and it doesn't hit them or affect them at all. But they notice the rocket and they start shooting at them. But before that, he's like, "Oh, reload the next rocket." He's like, "What other rocket?" He's like, "There was only one rocket. You told us that to cut down expenses. There was only one rocket." That whole back and forth is just so funny. So they try to flee away in the car, and they're getting shot at, and which leads them into this like ditch. And the driver gets killed. That came with Hank that was trying to like blow up the house, and Hank has to like jump over some bushes and hedges to try to essentially get away. All very, again, Victor's Eyes energy. Very, very funny. I thought that was like amazing. But then something interesting happens is while being left in the garage, Barry wakes up. And Barry wakes up in Janice Moss's husband's garage. And it's so funny that like when he wakes up, like he thinks about it. He thinks about escaping, but he still wants to go after Kusno. He still wants to essentially kill Jean. Very sad. Very, very sad indeed. And Sally's decided now to come to LA to confront Barry and to try to get him to stop. And in this entire time, I thought it was it especially speaks to her character, you know, her trying to confess, not only confess, but her actually coming back and trying to convince Barry that, like, you know, we need to turn ourselves in. This isn't right. You know, X, Y, and Z. But unfortunately, trying to meet up with Mr. Kusno and trying to meet up with Mr. Kusno and trying to turn herself in, she gets caught by no other than Hank, of course. And then the whole sting operation of Jean getting caught, promising that it was all about Janice's legacy, and being paid off that huge amount of money by Barry. They find out about that, and they basically incriminating Jean, which is so sad. So now NoHo Hank has Sally and his son. And towards the end of it, Barry learns this, and he's got to go get his son. And now he's got to go get his son. Coming out to like the last episode of the season 4, episode 8. This one is entitled. Oh, sorry. This one's entitled. What is this? This one is entitled Wow. Yes, Wow. The one before that was A Nice Meal. No, it's this one. This one is Wow. And again, like, they don't necessarily have a thing for this, proper synopsis of this. So again, a quick run through. Fusy's taking a bath, and he gets some kind of call to NoHo Hank, basically telling him, NoHo Hank tells him that he has Sally and Barry's son, and that he'll be there soon, because Fuchs can't let go of the fact that he just wants revenge on Barry. Just let it go. Just let it go. It's like basically not like letting things go. What happens when you don't let things go? So Barry goes to a shop. He's gearing up for war. He's gonna go up for war, preparing to die. And he's actually, what's funny is, like, I think he actually prays about it. And the commentary here, I think, is that it's so easy in America to buy guns. He comes out of the store just left, just marching out with a whole fucking army of guns, like army weighted bunch of guns, like on him. And he just picked up from a convenience store, and just hops on this car and goes. Something that was actually really touching about this episode, though, Sally has a heart-to-heart with this kid, and I thought that this was actually really touching because, like, we don't really see Sally like bond with this kid. We don't really see with Sally bond with this kid. Like, obviously this kid is his, but like, we don't really see him bond with her. Like, she was living whole, like we talked about earlier in this episode, where she was like running off with this dude and basically cheating on Barry and almost killing this dude, and she has psychological issues or whatever it is. But I have a feeling that, like, again, this bond with this kid, we see a moment where she breaks down and he hugs her, and she doesn't even realize like how much he loves her, and she's kind of taken aback by it. She's like, whoa, like, and then she's like, because he doesn't even really know her real name. He doesn't even really know her real name, but I guess there's love there. There's definitely love there for her, for this kid. And I thought that was actually kind of not only sweet, but like that the acting and the performance there was something really, really like really cool. And I thought that the kid did a good job of acting too. Like it was very, very believable scene when the men came in there and tried to separate them. But yeah. So this standoff between Fuchs and Noho Hank, man, gotta talk about this for sure. This was ridiculous. So at first they meet and Noho Hank's like, okay, like, you know, like where's the boy or whatever it is. She's like, no, and Noho Hank's like, no, we're not including him, and he's not a part of the deal. We're not including him in that. It's just gonna be the girl. And then Hank's like, Fuchs is like, well, that's not gonna work for us. We need the boy and the woman. And at this point, like, man, he's got some crazy in his eye for sure. Definitely got some crazy in his eye. But it's all intense and it's all dramatic. And they go out and they eventually go out and they bring the little boy in. And it's a standoff or whatever. And while this is so unnecessary, but again, they probably thought, you know what, it's the end of the series. Fuck it, let's just go big. The little boy comes out and they're standing there, and Fuchs, for whatever reason, still just has to go off about Cristobal and how he was murdered, and just gearing him up, just riling him up, riling Noho Hank up. And again, his performance is so believable. It's so good. It's so good. Like to where he breaks down in tears. And he's like, he's pushing him and he's talking about Cristobal, and it triggers something in Hank. It triggers something in Hank to just basically break down and start bawling his eyes out or whatever. And he last minute, he everything seems fine and everything was gonna work out, but at the last minute, Hank gets angry. He gets upset. He says no. And he's like, you know what? No deal, or whatever it is. He's like, no deal. And basically what sets it off is that he's like, you know what, you can go fuck yourself. And out of nowhere, surprisingly, Fuchs just shoots him. Just shoots this motherfucker. He's like, no deal. And I was like, that was kind of a little like out of character, I feel like, for Fuchs to just like to just randomly shoot him like that. But I feel like, what's fucked up, like both of them were like friends of Barry, and they felt like probably like they were both protecting the boy, and they both were protecting like Sally. They're both protecting Barry, and you're like, you know what? No deal. That's a little part of me feels that way. That came from Noho Hank for sure. Yeah, and then it pops off from there. Fuchs shoots Noho Hank, which is kind of unbelievable. And then after that, everybody just starts shooting, and it's a bloodbath on both sides. And like, some people are okay, and some people aren't. And then the motherfucker throws a grenade, which I thought was like so fucking random and so great. Because like at the end of the shootout, like some people were okay. Like Barry's son, keep in mind, Barry's son and Sally were right there. Everybody's okay, but then the motherfucker throws a grenade, and there were like 3 people left, and like those people like die. So great. But at the end of the day, like Barry's son is fine, and Noho Hank is left there bleeding at the feet of Cristobal's this statue that he's created in Cristobal's like office. And Barry shows up, of course, but by this time Noho Hank is already long dead. And they get Sally and his kid basically out of there. Now, this episode was a little bit of a slower one for sure, but Noho Hank and Barry and the moment between Fuchs and Barry, because Fuchs is the one who basically gets the little kid out of that situation, because even though he got shot, Fuchs shielded the little kid down to the ground, and he was fine. And I thought that was great, and that actually showed like, well, does Fuchs really want like revenge on Barry? Like, what's gonna happen here? And it turns out that Fuchs meets up with Barry in the middle of nowhere and hands the kid basically off to him, and it's kind of a surreal moment where Fuchs looks at Barry and Barry looks at Fuchs, and it's kind of like in that moment, it's like as a stare down, is like, I could kill you, I could kill you and your kid now. But through everything that they've been through, he just like lets it go. He finally lets it go. I thought that was great. I thought that was really good. And not only appropriate, but like, I mean, you take you a long time to learn this lesson too, but like you finally learn your lesson. Just let the chick go. Barry and Sally and the kid end up back at this motel. And Sally's basically telling him that like, yo, you need to turn yourself in. And Barry's just like telling you, you're crazy. Everything's fine. We got away with it and X, Y, and Z. And like, this is Sally's conscience talking like, you need to get away with it, which I'm basically surprised that after 8 years later, she came to this like realization that, like, hey, like what we're doing is wrong. How we're raising him is wrong. And for the benefit of him, we need to come clean with basically everything. And when Barry still tells her like she's crazy, Barry falls asleep, they fall asleep, and then when Barry wakes up, she's gone. And when she's gone, Barry goes trying to hunt her down and looking for her all over the place. And he goes to, of course, where does he think they could possibly be? The place that he could possibly be is Mr. Kusno's home. And Barry goes to Mr. Kusno's home, and he's in there, he's shouting, he's wondering like where his son and his wife is. He's like, he wants them back, XYZ. And he is just in the living room shouting at his Gene's lawyer and telling him that he's not here or whatever it is. And it's only then when he starts to feel like, you know what, this is wrong. All this is wrong. He should probably turn himself in. He should probably do the right thing. And he says, you should probably call the police. And then the lawyer's kind of like, well, why should I call the police? And he's like, and I like to believe that he was going to say like, oh, because I'm going to essentially like turn myself in. And in that moment, all we hear is bang. We hear bang. And Barry's shot right to the chest. And he's like, oh wow, and then that's it, and they cut the black. He's like, what? Sorry, he's like, oh wow, and they go and Gene. It turns out Gene had shot him in the chest, and then Gene shoots him right square in the head, and then they cut the black. And that cinematically, that like identified and notified us as the audience, like it's over, like it's over. Barry's done. And Gene killed him. Gene killed him right on the steps. And that scene of him just like basically dead in his living room is how the series ends. And his lawyer on the phone talking to the police over the phone, trying to get them down. Then we have another time jump where we see Barry's son and his friend we see Sally and Barry's it's like a high school setting, it looks like, and Sally is talking to her son, it's now a teenager, about this movie, about wanting to spend time with his friend. And his friend had set it up so where they were going to watch this movie, and Barry is basically the movie about Barry, the movie that they were making. And it's nothing, of course, it's nothing like that. I like how they played into that. Like usually the movie is like nothing like how it actually happened. So they played into that, and I thought that was really cool. But he got to see it, and we could see the emotional like struggles, I guess, like on his face at the very end of the series, where we also find out that Gene is saying Les is serving a life sentence for what happened to Barry, for him actually killing Barry. But yeah, I mean, and considering everything that he went through, I mean, he just cracked and he just went to murder him. But that's going to do it for the podcast, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I know this one went a little bit over. Oh, wait. We still have to do top 3 episodes and predictions. It's top 3 episodes definitely for Barry season 4. Barry season 4, where I want to say the last episode, the finale, it was great. The second, coming in second, was I think the Tricky Legacies. This is where like they did the time jump, and it starts off at towards the end of the episode before this one, but I think that one is where we get to learn a little bit more information about what was happening. And then I think the other one was the one before that one. It Takes a Psycho, where Barry essentially Cristobal is murdered, and Barry essentially is trying to. Is this where it happens? I think. Actually, no. I don't think this is where it happened. It was the episode after Barry had escaped prison. And I think Noho Hank's performance of when Cristobal dies, I think that when Cristobal dies, favorite scene, definitely one up there. The last episode and Legacies. Those are the top episodes. So episode 8, Wow. Episode 6, episodes 5, Tricky Legacies, and then the episode with Noho Hank and him losing Cristobal, which was episode 4. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Linda, if you'd give us the on-review score.
Barry, season 4, receives a 4 out of 5.
Now we can say, guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. Thank you so much. Don't forget to listen to watch and follow us. Watch the next episode of OnReviewCast, but don't forget to subscribe and listen to the next episode. And don't forget to hit us up on all our socials, our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for listening. And I hope to let you guys listen to the next episode. We're going to be reviewing another, stay tuned for the next series that we review, or maybe it'll be a movie. Who knows? Got to tune in to the next episode of On Review to find out. But thanks again, guys. Remember our Facebook and Instagram, our Twitter. Become a patron, guys. Get a patron, you get a shout out, and you may get a special shout out in form of a song. So that could be cool too. But yeah, guys, thanks for listening. Be safe, be kind, be you. Take care.